Hey, 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 welcome to Living the Miracle. Okay, so you got the message. You're being disciplined. Everything's going great. And then the ego comes back. Then all of a sudden you're wondering, did this even happen? How do you deal with that? That's what we're going to be talking about today in Living the Miracle number 3, the return of the ego or the ego's comeback. How to stay rooted in truth. Because it's going to happen. The ego's going to come back. And guess what? It's okay. In fact, that's part of the process, course correction. We're also going to talk about that. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about Rhythmia, this magnificent, extraordinary place that I have the great privilege of being of service here in this center of life advancement. And every week I see it. Every week we see people who are at the end of their rope, or people who are searching for a life purpose, people who are at a crossroads in their life, people whose lives have been great, but now just doesn't have that feeling anymore. It doesn't have that, like, I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't know what I want. All of these things are reasons why people come to Rhythmia, and every week they get healed. It's miraculous. So today's theme is the ego's comeback, how to stay rooted in the truth. And, just because the ego resurfaces doesn't mean that you're regressing. It actually means that you're evolving. It's really normal. I want to normalize this for you. After a ayahuasca ceremony, after a retreat, after a deep spiritual insight, I want to reframe this return of the ego as a spiritual checkpoint and to give you tools to stay rooted when it happens, because course correction is part of the course. I used to feel off, right? Like, oh, I'm off course, but course correction is part of the course. So that'll be a point later on in the talk. I want to remind you that we're in talk 3 of a 4-part series, and this is the ego's return. The week 1, we talked about, you got the message, now what? Like, you got the download, you got the insight, now what do? We talked a lot about integration. And then week 2 was sacred discipline and how this sacred discipline helps you to live. And we gave some specific tools and techniques to help you live and embody and integrate and embody this new insight. And this week, what happens when the ego returns? And the ego return isn't failure, it's feedback. And it means that you're actually walking the path. It means that you're actually living the miracle, because course correction is not proof that you're off the path. It's actually how we stay on the path. I mean, every pilot makes micro corrections to stay on course. NASA, when the space shuttle was flying, when they send a rocket up to the space station, that rocket is off course 80% of the time. Now, SpaceX or NASA have to be pretty precise in order to launch, a rocket to the space station. So what would make a rocket go off course? I mean, they're really precise. They got the projections down and everything. Why would it go off course? Well, there's atmospheric winds. There's gravitational differences in the Earth. So if you're launching a rocket and it's going around the Earth, it's in orbit to get to the space station, which is also in orbit around the Earth, right? But there are parts of the Earth that have different gravitational pulls. There's a space in the Indian Ocean that has a much lower gravitational pull than other parts of the Earth. So all of a sudden, you're in orbit, and now there's a portion that you're flying over that has less gravity, and now it pulls you out of orbit. There are all sorts of circumstances and conditions in life that could move us off course from our original trajectory. That doesn't mean that we failed. It means there are circumstances and conditions, atmospheric winds, and we make adjustments based on the changing circumstance and condition. This is actually part of being in balance. And there's no, balance is not a fixed point. It's homeostasis is dynamic. It's a constant correction based on new information, new experiences, new things, new stimuli coming in. And based on those new stimuli, I now make adjustments, micro adjustments based on the new stimuli. That's the return or the ego's comeback. And again, it's not being off course. It's making micro adjustments mid-flight so that we stay on course. So course correction is part of the course. Now, you may also have a feeling like, all right, well, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 were great for integration. And now I feel like I'm backsliding. But integration isn't linear. Healing isn't linear. It's really, think of a spiral, right? And we're spiraling, and it's spiraling up and wider. But let's say, you're every time you make a conscious choice to course correct, no matter how small, you deepen your embodiment. And it's sort of like we revisit the same patterns from higher levels of awareness. So you might feel like you're still dealing with forgiveness. I forgave these people in ceremony. And now you come back around and you have to deal with forgiveness again. And you're like, I thought I forgave this. Well, you're dealing with it from a more expanded awareness, a higher, more elevated awareness. And so you're dealing with the same patterns, but from higher levels of awareness. And the ego comes back with questions like, are you really that new version of you? Did you really change? Can I test your commitment to this miracle? Right? And here's the key, that every time you make a conscious choice, every time you make a decision, a choice to course correct, to come back to course, to come back to your intention, to come back to the realization of your healing, every time you do that, you are deepening your embodiment. That's actually part of integration. So you're not starting over, you're spiraling upward to a higher view. It's the same terrain, but a higher view. So don't get discouraged when that sort of thing happens. Don't get discouraged. So I want to share a personal story with you of a time when old ego thoughts and behaviors crept in after a major breakthrough. There's a couple stories that are coming to mind. One was about forgiveness, that I had worked with forgiveness, forgiving a group of people that I was in relationship with. And man, after that ceremony, I came out and I was like, yes, I'm free. I'm free. I've forgiven them. Oh my God, it's so good. And then a couple days later, I was in a meeting or something, and those people came up, and I had like a reaction. I like cringed. I went, ooh. And I thought I forgave them in ceremony. Damn. The truth is, I was coming at it from a more expanded, like same terrain, higher view. Like I forgave at one level in ceremony, and now here was another opportunity to forgive. And so we keep choosing. And examples of this are like the post-retreat doubt, like that didn't really happen. No. Or the inner critic returning. I believe, remember the Muppet Show? Remember the two old guys that sat up in the balcony? They live in my head. They're constantly commenting on how messed up I am and how stupid I am and all that stuff, right? They're just the inner critics that sit in the balcony, and that's part of comparison, scarcity. All of these are returns of the ego. The ego's come back, old thought patterns coming back, and then when we walk through them, the moment the awareness and the consciousness is a choice to return to the truth. So we're making constant choices to return to the truth. And I used to think that the miracle was lost, but actually now I see that that's part of integration. It's part of the unfolding. And the correction really was the miracle, right? And now I get to walk through it. So I want to give you some tools to stay rooted in the truth. But do I want to tell you another story? Okay, I got another story for you. Another story about the return of the ego, the ego's comeback. This is not with plant medicine, but with agape. So I was at agape, this was many years ago, and I was, learning with Reverend Michael. I was working in his office and learning so much from my teacher. It was great. And I was going home to see my family, to see my brother. At this time, my brother, who has subsequently passed away, he was in the process of an 8-year struggle with cancer. And I was going home to see him. And my brother had, in this struggle with cancer, had become a fundamentalist Christian. And I was really getting steeped in the new thought, ancient wisdom teachings, esoteric, metaphysical teachings of agape. And every time I would go to talk to my brother, we would fight. And I was like, I don't want to fight with him. He's dying, I don't want to fight with him. But we would get in these fights. And so I was getting ready to go home to see him. And I went and talked to Reverend Michael, and I told him the story, like he's a fundamentalist Christian. I've got all these new thought, ancient wisdom teachings. And every time we talk, we get in a fight and he's dying. And I don't want to fight with him, but I don't know what to do. I can't even talk to my brother anymore, Rev. And he goes, I go, what do I do? And I was expecting him to be like, all right, you do this process and you do that. And he goes, just be his brother, man. And I was like, what? Just be his brother? What the hell does that mean? So all the way home, I was thinking, just be his brother, just be his brother, just be his brother. And I show up and I went to talk to him. And instead of like trying to correct him, right, on how messed up and wrong he was about his fundamentalist Christian thinking, right, instead of doing that, I just listened and we talked, and a thought came through like, wow, he's not bitter. Like I could see that whatever he was doing, he wasn't bitter, and he knew he was dying. And so I said that to him. I go, bro, I can't believe you're not bitter. And he goes, you can't heal if you're bitter, bro. I was like, whoa, I didn't need to do anything. So another ego comeback is when we think that we have to like draw the line in the sand to teach people their incorrect ways, to help them see where they're wrong, to show them, the beauty of what we're experiencing and how great it is. And you should see this too, right? All of that is part of the ego's comeback. And just observing that in ourselves is part of the course correction. Observing and just being a brother, a sister, a husband, a wife, a colleague, a friend, a cousin, whatever it is. Just being there for that person without having to teach, proselytize, correct, show them the error of their ways, all of that stuff never works. So how do we stay rooted in the truth? So the ego gives a signal, right? There's a little signal to check in. And so when the ego signals something, like you get triggered or you find an old pattern coming back, you ask, like it's a way of interrupting the thought by taking a breath, and then checking in with, how am I feeling? What is the ego? What am I feeling right now? And the ego is a protective mechanism. So what is the ego trying to protect me from? Right? That's another question. What is the ego trying to protect me from? And typically it's trying to keep you safe. That's generally, but it's either safety or acceptance or control. Generally, often it's one of those things. So don't shame the ego, because that's shaming yourself. And that's part of the same old process of not accepting ourselves, which pretty much got us into the place where we were before. So we don't want to shame the ego or condemn or judge ourselves or others. We want to have a lot of compassion and a lot of love for ourselves and for others, but especially ourselves, and ask, what does the ego need to be comforted right now? What do I need? What does the ego need to be soothed? So don't condemn it. Don't shame it. Don't judge it, but soothe it. Like, begin to have a conversation. Like, what do you need? Well, I don't feel safe. Okay, what do you need to feel safe right now, ego? And if I can find an alternative way for you to feel safe, will you get on board with this new program of forgiveness that we're working on? Start having a conversation with yourself, but asking the ego what it needs to be safe. And how can I soothe the ego? That's like taking care of yourself on a whole different level. So it's like an ego signal check-in and interruption and soothing. The second tool is compassionate witnessing. Real freedom is observation without judgment. Because most of the time, we're not observing a fixed, permanent reality that's out there, that we're just, observing the truth. Most of the time, we're observing or filtering whatever external stimuli are coming in through our opinions and judgments. So we're not really getting what's real. We're getting a filter of our opinions and judgments about what we just witnessed. So, observing without judgment is a way for us to see, oh my God, that's just a part of me that gets afraid. That's just a part of me that feels unlovable. There's a part of me that feels stupid. There's not one part of you that doesn't deserve to be loved and accepted. There's not one part of you that doesn't deserve to be loved and accepted, especially the parts that we don't like, especially the parts we don't want. Those parts actually need more love, not less. And we're going around beating it like, like it's there's like so many metaphors, but they're all so inappropriate nowadays. But, I think the old one was like a redheaded stepchild. Sorry to all the gingers out there. But we're really beating ourselves up when really it's like that part is just afraid. What can I do now? How can I comfort that part? Return to the breath, state your mantra or anchor in your practice. Just interrupt it. Just interrupt that pattern. Observation without judgment. So first I can't change what I don't see. So if I don't observe it, I can't change it. And then I can't change it if I'm judging it, because judgment and condemnation never heal. Acceptance is the only thing that heals. And so accepting ourselves, accepting that part of ourselves that gets afraid, that part of ourselves that feels stupid, that part of ourselves that doesn't think we can do it, that part of ourselves that's embarrassed, actually loving that part of ourselves, which is hard. How do we love the part of ourselves we don't like? Accepting that that's the way that part of me is right now. And from that place, then I can make a course correction. From that place, I can see, what does that part need in order to feel loved? And now I'm attending to my own. What we typically do is project out on another, but really it's a part of us that, what part of me is feeling judged? What part of me is feeling not enough? What part of me is feeling excluded or like I don't belong or looking stupid? All right, now I can get in touch with that by doing a simple breath interruption, taking a breath. I can state my mantra. I'm connected to everything and everyone. We are one. I create what I want, and what I want comes to me with ease and grace in a magical way. My mantra tends to move me out of comparison and into creation, because ultimately I'm the creator of my life experience. And if I'm letting myself be tossed around by these atmospheric waves, by my ego, by all these old patterns, then I'm a victim to those patterns. And I don't want to be a victim to anything. I am not a victim. My identity is not victim. My identity is creator. My identity is truth, Sat Nam. Sat means truth, Nam means identity. Sat Nam is my identity, is truth. Truth is my identity. And so we anchor in a practice, we return to our breath, and we remind ourselves of the truth, that that's just a part of me that's looking for love and acceptance. And then the third tool for embodying this and navigating the ego's comeback is rooting ritual, right? Ritual, daily practice is a way that we re-choose the truth every day. Like sometimes I have an idea. Oh, I'm going to make this habit change. Right? This morning I had an epiphany about, a habit that I want to change. And that habit is sometimes I get up in the middle of the night and I eat. Like, A couple spoonfuls of peanut butter or fruit or something. And then I get up in the morning and I feel guilty that I ate. And then it's like, well, you can't even intermittent fast because you broke the fast already in the middle of the night when you woke up and unconsciously ate. And so I had the idea, right, that my mantra is that I allow my body time to digest and rest after meals, and that my last intake of food is around 8 o'clock. That was great this morning. But if I didn't write it down so that when I get home tonight, it's in my mind again, and I keep that, it's like I keep reminding myself of who I want to be. And then it makes it a little bit easier to stay in the choice of who I want to be, because sometimes I forget, right? By the end of the day, I've forgotten that brilliant insight I had after meditation this morning. And then I find myself at 11:30 at night waking up and having some peanut butter or whatever it is that I'm eating. So simply reminding myself, staying in the practice, the daily practice of it, is rechoosing the truth, rechoosing who I declare myself to be. And it could be something as simple as writing it down. It could be something as simple as getting barefoot and standing on the ground and saying, even now I choose love. Even now I choose. Remember, I'm choosing. And each return to this truth is holy. It's a holy course correction. Holy course correction, Batman. Yes, it's a holy course correction. So let's ask some questions. What truth do I need to re-anchor today? What truth do I need to re-anchor into today? Where is the ego attracting me? What is it? Where is it trying to get my attention? What is the ego asking from my attention right now? Where is it trying to get my attention, and what is it asking? How can I love that part of myself? How can I love that part of myself? And to remind myself of who I want to be, to keep reminding myself of the person that I am declaring myself to be. And if I keep declaring myself that person, and I keep making choices that are in alignment with that declaration, even though sometimes I might be off course and I course correct and I keep remembering and I keep remembering, I'm eventually embodying that. This is the process. So really, love is the comeback. Love is the comeback. When the ego comes back, it's asking for more love. When the ego comes back, it's asking for more acceptance of those parts. So you haven't lost your miracle. You haven't lost the miracle. You didn't lose the healing. You're simply embodying it in a new way. And this is walking the path. This is what it means to be a spiritual person. You're not off the path because course correction is part of the path. You are on the path because you're course correcting. That's called a feedback loop. It's a natural corrective process, and it's what every advanced system or technology must have. When systems or technologies or people or institutions don't have corrective mechanisms, they go into totalitarianism. If you have a corrective mechanism, there's a way to maintain the institution, to maintain the path, the system, or the person. So the ego's return is really just a chance to root deeper and not to retreat, but to go deeper. Remember, you're just spiraling, same terrain, higher view. Same terrain, higher view. So, okay, that's our talk for today. Next week, our talk is on embodied trust. So living the miracle number 4, embodied trust. And what it means to live as it's already done, to know it, not believe it, not have faith in it, but to know it. That's the key to creation. We're going to talk about that next week. Peace and richest blessings. Thank you so much for joining us. Ciao, ciao.